All right, well, let's just welcome everybody to the July 13th, 2020 Fleetwood Borough Council meeting. Please recall that the meeting is being recorded for borough documentation purposes. At this time, I'd like just to do a quick roll call just so we can assure that everybody is here. So I'll start with, well, I'm here, obviously. Mr. Merkel?
Here.
Mr. Meals?
Here.
Mr. Watkins?
Mark is not joining us.
Oh, Mark is not, I'm sorry. Mr. Touch?
Here.
Mr. Boyer?
I'm here.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Present.
Tammy Gore, Mayor?
I am here.
Doreen O'Neill, Secretary?
Here.
Courtney, you're here for Andrew George, is that correct?
Correct.
And Chris Young, our manager?
Here.
Craig Conrad?
He just texted me. He's having trouble getting in, so I'm sending him the invite.
Okay. Bob Widener? Chief Stinsky?
Here.
John Manmiller? Ryan Kern?
Here.
And I don't know if we have anybody in from the Eagle or the Patriot online. Do we? I don't think so.
They haven't identified themselves, and everybody else has been identified in the participants. So.
Okay.
We do have two guests.
I'm on Fleetwood's meeting right now, Zoom meeting, then I'll be in. That's okay.
And we do have two guests in addition?
We have, yes, Denton and Anita Tempesco from Anita's Trinkets.
I would just ask everybody to please identify themselves when they're speaking so that we can make sure that we have a clear record and we know who is speaking, whatever comments are provided, okay? Okay, let's start. We should start with Chief Stinsky so he can get his report done, and then we'll move on. Or do you want to do engineering first?
I put, and this is your call, of course, but I put Ryan first because Steve's report was going to be pretty lengthy.
Okay, if that's okay with you, Steve, then what we're going to do is we're going to move on to Ryan first. So Ryan, could you proceed?
Certainly. Chris, do you have can you call up my engineer's report?
Everybody was sent. We're not using the screen for that today.
Okay, let me call it up from my computer. I have it right here. Okay. All right, the first item on our engineer's report for tonight's meeting is the Borough MS4 and pollution reduction plan items. For Willow Creek Stream Restoration Project, Christine Milner notified me that there is a meeting that is to be scheduled. It's still not on the calendar yet, but she's working on that. For the second item, floodplain vegetation and management, there were no additional work items conducted over the past month. For the MS4 annual report that's required to be submitted to DEP, we have started a draft, and it is our intention to submit it to the borough by August 26th. The draft report will include documents that are needed by the borough to provide to us, and then we will be submitting the report to DEP by the end of September.
Ryan, can I just interrupt you for just a second?
Yes.
Anybody who's on the line, if you wouldn't mind very much making sure that you're muted because we're getting some crosstalk.
Okay, Suzanne, can you hear me okay though when I'm talking?
I can hear you now, but before there was some, I couldn't hear you at some points, and then there was crosstalk coming over what you were saying.
Okay, so some of the things I was saying is that the annual report is due by the end of September. We'll submit a draft report to the borough by the end of August, and it'll have a list of documents that are needed for the final report, and we'll coordinate with Chris Young on that item. One other thing we note in our report, the PSU, Penn State Extension, has prepared a residence guide identifying stormwater BMPs on their property or adjacent to their property. We find that this publication is very helpful, and we recommend that the borough post a link to your website. And then
I don't think there should be any problem with that. Just make sure that you provide it to Chris, and Chris can put it up on the website.
Sounds good. The link is actually included within our engineer's report. So Chris can just copy and paste it right out of there.
Yep, got it.
Okay. And then the next Berks County MS4 Steering Committee meeting is going to be held by teleconference this Thursday. We'll provide summary notes to Chris Young after our attendance at that meeting. Okay, the second bullet point on our report is for the water treatment plant stream realignment. I'm just keeping that there as just an indicator that there might be something moving later this year or next year. I'm going to keep it on my report until we hear from the borough to either remove it or move ahead. And the third item is the Tannery parking lot. The project is considered substantially complete. We are holding a retainage fee of $20,000, mostly regarding topsoil, seeding, and the one channel that needs to be addressed is the road channel. So the contractor has indicated they will address the punch list. They didn't give us a firm date yet, but it's supposed to happen over the next 2 weeks.
They are currently working on it now. This is Craig.
Yes.
They are
Okay,
currently working on it.
Okay, Craig, good. We didn't hear that. The last thing we heard last week was that they're going to try to get to it at some time in the near future. They didn't
Yeah,
call us.
well, I called them. I called them today. They had put looked like a mushroom soil mix in the grass and kind of raked it in. There's big lumps in there. I can't even mow it. So I called them today, and they have to come back and do something different. And they had removed the scour mat, and we're working on that. That's not finished yet.
Good. Good to hear that they're back out there. Okay, Suzanne, that's the end of my report. If anybody has any questions or anything they want my firm to address or know, please let me know now.
Any other questions for engineering? Chris, is there anything coming up in the rest of the agenda that we need to cross-reference now?
Well, so we have Anita on, and Ryan, you're familiar with the project on South Richmond Street that Harry was championing about the saldo requirement waiver?
Correct. Yes.
So Suzanne, we could do that now if you want.
Why not while we have Ryan here, in case there's any questions that we need to direct to him?
Okay, so I direct everybody then to 5A, subpart 3, land use development waiver for 101 South Richmond Street. I'm going to unmute Anita. And Ryan, did you want to give an intro to it, or do you want me to?
Chris, you're more intimately involved with it than I am, since you're dealing with the zoning officer. I recommend it to you.
Okay, so as I think I sent everybody in council a email from Harry that recommended this. The 10,000 foot version is Anita Tampesco purchased the building at 101 South Richmond Street. It's the old Fleetwood Chiropractic building. She is subdividing it by code to 3 separate tenants. That subdivision by tenant typically requires a saldo land development. And if council recalls, we did something very similar with the Grand Central Tap Room, where council waived the requirement for land development because their plans do not have any exterior changes whatsoever. Anita, did you want to give us a couple words?
Yeah. Can you hear me? This is Anita.
Welcome,
Can you hear me
Anita.
okay?
Yep, I can hear
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for having me this evening at the meeting. Yes, my husband and I bought the property at 101 South Richmond. I currently have my business, Anita Trinket, located on Main Street. We've done really well there with Fleetwood, and our intention was to expand our business into the building on 101 South Richmond Street, into the 2-story portion of that building. The other portion of the building is tenant space that we will rent to for office area at this time. That is where we would need the waiver. We are not making any changes to the exterior structure of the building or parking lot or landscaping. All of those are cosmetic only.
Anita, this is Tammy Gorn. I'm the mayor, and I've been anxiously awaiting for you to move into the new location. I keep looking for you. I just want to thank you for investing in the borough, and I'm so happy to hear that you have been doing well, and that I'm sure you'll even do better in your own place. And it has such a beautiful parking lot, and we're just thrilled to have you. So I just wanted to personally thank you. I meant to do it in person, but since you're here, I'm going to take the opportunity. So thank you, and I certainly wish you tremendous success there.
I absolutely appreciate that. We're trying to do everything to keep the integrity of the building. Its original use was a stone saw mill, if you look at any of the documentation on the building. So we would like to call it that. And then any business in there would be at the stone saw mill. Just to try to bring some back, some of that back into Fleetwood about what its original use was. And then it also was the town hall at one point as well.
That I did not know. So
Pete might remember that.
You always have to make jokes about my age. I'm okay. Can somebody refresh my memory as to what saldo means?
it's
Subdivision and land
use development.
Okay. So, and I don't mean to be the wet blanket because I think it's a great building and I'm so glad that these people bought it. So you're going to split it into two tenants and you're going to have office building. Do you have enough parking? There's not much parking there.
It's currently spec'd out in our plans that were drawn up for 18 parking spaces.
And so Pete, when I talked to Harry, he said that there is no zoning differential that they would qualify with this expansion.
Oh, well, that's good because just looking at it from afar, it doesn't look like there's too many spaces, but hopefully there is.
Yes, it was lined previously with the physical therapy office for that amount of spaces, and we are planning on having that relined to take advantage of that amount of parking for the tenants that will be in the building.
Oh, that's good.
Again, Anita, it's Tammy. Do you know at this point who your other tenants are going to be?
So in 2/3 of the rental space, we are renting to the lawyers, Salin and Miller, that are currently in with O'Keefe next to Klingers. They're coming over as renters in 2/3. The other part of the building that we have for tenant space, we are currently going to use that for office space for my business at this time.
Okay. All right. Does anybody know what's happening with the O'Keefe building since we are having a shuffling here? Anybody have any ideas?
I hadn't heard anything, Tammy. I thought Klingers didn't open, right?
Well, they're definitely open.
Oh, they're open.
They're open now? Okay. I thought that they were not reopening, so.
But it's the building next on the other side of Klingers where Miller was before and I forget her name. But anyway, yes, it's the building across the outdoor dining is where the law offices were. So I was just wondering if anybody knows. We'll have to, somebody will tell us.
So then, in order for this to go forward, we would need a motion from someone to allow for the waiver of the requirement. Do I have a motion from anybody?
It's Pete. I'll make the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Merkel. Do I have a second?
John Rothenberger, a second.
Thank you, John. I have a motion by Pete. I've got a second by John Rothenberger. Do we have any further discussion on this? Okay, then we're going to go through the listing for the votes, please. I'll do it. Chris, I can do it. I'm going to vote yes. Mr. Merkel made the motion, so I'm going to assume you're saying yes, Mr. Merkel?
Yes, I'm saying yes.
Mr. Meal? Mr. Meals, Jimmy?
He's
Jim, you have to unmute.
yeah, I'm trying to unmute him. He must be muted on his end. I can't.
We'll come back.
Okay, yeah.
Yep,
Can you hear me?
Mr. Meals,
There we
there you
go.
go. We got you now. All right, Mr. Koch?
Yeah.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rothenberger made the second, so I'm assuming that that's still a go, yes?
Yes.
And that is Tammy?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Then that is everybody. So that is unanimous. So congratulations. Welcome
Thank
aboard.
you so much.
We're looking
Thank you. I
forward to
really
great
appreciate
success
it.
for you on Main Street.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me this evening in the meeting.
You're very welcome. Hope to have a good evening and a safe evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
Thank you. I invite you all over to the shop to check it out when you have a moment.
We
will.
will be there with masks on.
Thank you.
Okay, then we're going to move, if that's okay with everybody here, we're going to move on to Chief Stinsky's report, please.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah.
We hear you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. As you guys should have had the police report there in your little hands. A couple of things I just want to touch on, some of the bigger things that happened in Fleetwood. I guess I should start my report off with a bang, or not so much. We did have a suspicious device found in the basement of a house over on Beach Street. It looked to be a World War II era hand grenade that had nails taped around it. It was all rusty, and had it been a real device, it would have been extremely unstable. It was found in the corner of a basement by a cable guy who was running some cable. So Reading Bomb Squad came out, picked it up for us, and determined that it was, in fact, inert. So we had some, right in the immediate vicinity, we had the fire company standing by, and some minor evacuations. But everything worked out well there. We did catch a couple of kids with a report from a neighbor that were throwing rocks and bricks through one of the windows in the building along the tracks there over on Franklin Street. And we have them identified, so we're working on that. We did have two larger incidents in town. We had a gentleman who was staying with a family in town who was having some mental health issues. We had to negotiate him out of his house twice. And then we had a few weeks later, we had reports of erratic driver and it causing nearly head-on crashes several times. So we were able to track him down and then safely get him to where some people give him an evaluation and some help. So that was quite a big deal there. And then we also had a public demonstration for a group called Racial Unity in Berks County. They were in town on the 20th of June, and we were fortunate that we had some support from Kutztown Police, Kutztown University, and Northern Berks Police, and the Sheriff's Department to support us in that endeavor. And keep talking with the organizers. We felt it would most likely be a smaller scale, peaceful march, and that's what it was. And likewise, similarly, we had helped Kutztown Borough a couple of weeks prior with one that occurred that was in their area. So we got through that unscathed, and I think we had a good showing by the officers in our department. I think everybody working as well as they did is what helped keep the event as successful as it was. Was a bit costly, though. The total expense for this one, ours was a little bit smaller than Kutztown's. I don't have all the final numbers in yet, but it was somewhere between a $5,000 to $10,000 event for that afternoon. So there is a cost with doing things like that. All of our officers did complete our annual spring qualifications period. Yep.
Is there any financial coverage for events like that with all these protests going on?
Nope.
Oh, great. Okay. Moving on.
And
Yep.
Chief,
Yeah,
is the cost because of the coverage for the event and the manpower?
it's manpower costs. We actually had every single officer in our department was working there. All of them except one was already scheduled, but the other 6, as well as Cindy, who was serving as a scribe and a radio operator, were on overtime. And the only person who escaped was Sergeant Olshafer because he was out of town on vacation. And then we had 2 officers from Kutztown, 2 officers from Kutztown University, 1 officer from Northern Berks, and 2 deputy sheriffs.
Do we
So,
pay
so
those
in addition
officers
to having the
as
people,
well, or are they covered by their
sorry?
own departments?
They're covered by their own department. So the total cost of that event wasn't all of our costs. We had to bear the cost for our just for our people that were working. So
I want to pass, this is John, I want to pass along a word of thanks to Steve and the crew that were there. They interacted very well. I happen to know the organizer for the event and spoke to her, and she was happy with the way everything was planned out ahead of time. And the interaction between Steve and herself was that I got the same feedback from both you guys. So I think that the whole situation went very well, and I just want to pass that along.
It certainly did, and everything I heard was positive about it. It's just I don't think people realize. I mean, obviously it's necessary, but what the costs are associated with these demonstrations, it does put a burden on manpower and financial resources. So, but yes, kudos to a job well done, of course.
thank you. All right, let me see here. That's really most of the stuff that I have to cover. The only other thing that I'll say, 2 items. One is that we have been experiencing a couple of growing pains with our relationship with PSP. We are trying to be overly accommodating to the additional municipalities that we covered, and trying to take care of minor things. And there was a give and take because we take care of some borough business and we're in other places as well. But we were sort of getting taken advantage by the state police. If there was a minor call that would come in, certain troopers would tell the people, oh, you've got to call Fleetwood Police for that. Or if we would be responding to a call that was maybe a critical call, state police started calling and saying, well, do we really have to go because Fleetwood's already going? So I'll be telling Topton tonight. I already told Ruskin Manor when I was at their meeting last week that or the week before, that if we're not covering one of the township or the borough, we are going to make a proper referral to PSP and let them have it. So I had to talk. I spoke with the leadership at PSP, and everybody's on board. It's just, like I said, growing pains, but we have it worked out. We are having, as far as future events go, on the 30th, the 2020 graduating Fleetwood seniors are going to have a parade, a graduation parade of sorts. They're going to form up in cars in the parking lot of the high school, and then there's a map. I forwarded to Chris. That's something that you guys, I guess, need to review and approve at tonight's meeting. The parade route, we have fire police. We've been in contact with the Fleetwood, Virginville, Walnut Town, and Blandon fire companies. And we'll also be assisted by members of Northern Berks Regional PD. So we're going to start out at the school, basically go down Richmond Street to Arch, and then worm our way back around to Forest and out to Crisscross, and then over to Pleasant Hill, do a loop through Maiden Creek, and then come back. As we're passing the superintendent and maybe a couple other people might have a few brief announcements before the parade begins, if you will. And then all the faculty that they can get available are going to go and be standing in the area of Willow Creek to congratulate the seniors as we drive by that first time. So we'll drive through, do the loop in Maiden Creek, and actually come back across Crisscross Road and end then back at the high school. We've got the Safe Graduation Committee has been in contact with us. They have all the ground rules that will be following, et cetera, the maps of the routes. They have those. They'll be distributing them. I have them posted on our Facebook page, and I believe Mr. Young has a copy of that as well.
Yeah, Steve, I do, and I apologize. I thought you sent that to council. So council does have a copy of it if you check your inbox within the last 5 seconds. And it's not on the website yet. I was waiting for council permission or approval before we put it.
Can everybody take a moment and quick look at their inboxes if they can at that parade route so that we can get a motion to authorize this?
And Steve already verbally described it.
Do I have a motion to authorize the route for the graduation, the 2020 Fleetwood Area High School graduation parade?
I'll make the motion. It's Ralph.
I have a second. Motion, do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
This
This is Colin.
Thank you, Colin. So I have a motion by Mr. Touch and I have a second by Mr. Boyer. Do I have any further discussion on this? Okay, we're going to go through the roll and then we'll take the vote. So I'm in favor, yes. Mr. Merkel?
Yes, sorry, I was
That's okay,
muted.
no worries. Mr. Watkins is not here. Mr. Touch made the motion. Mr. Touch?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Yes.
Tammy?
Yep.
Okay. We've got a full house authorizing that, so everything's set for the
Susanna,
2020.
excuse me, Susanna, it's Doreen.
Yes.
Did we catch Jimmy?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Jimmy, are you back on?
Yep, I'm a yes.
And you're a yes. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Okay, now we're a full unanimous vote. So that motion carries then for the 2020 Fleetwood Area High School graduation parade. And Chris, you'll be putting that information up on the website, and
Correct.
if you will as well.
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, Chief.
And also, I'll also send an email out to the Safe Graduating Committee so they know that the council got approved in case none of them are on board right now. The only other thing I wanted to touch on was anybody happened to be home on the 4th of July, you could see, hear, and feel and smell quite a celebration of America's freedom in the air. I've got to say, I don't know if it's a combination of people of all the formal displays being canceled, people being cooped up for several months, but it was extremely loud and I would say unsettling. We had an officer in Topton who said it was the same. I think through the night, I think I read somewhere Berks Radio had 500 to 700 complaints about fireworks going off. I was actually working in the borough on the 4th of July, and I had this grand plan about how I was going to try to sneak up on people and find out who was setting off fireworks within 150 feet of their house illegally. But about 10 to 9, I got dispatched an accident at Arch and Franklin, which kept me tied up for about an hour. And during that time, I felt like I was on the beaches of Normandy. There were loud explosions and flashes on all sides of me. And it makes it, even had I been available, frankly, it would have been very tough to try to conduct enforcement because a couple of things happen. Either you find where something may have gone off from and you go there and it'll be a large group of people, kind of tough to identify who actually the culprit was, or you'll hear or see a couple of flashes or bangs, 2 or 3, and then whoever's setting off the fireworks will set off 2 or 3 and they'll stop and they'll wait 5 to 10 minutes to set off some more. But it was, if anybody's around town, it was extremely unnerving. And I know that Senator Schwank from the state has already publicized that she's seeking to have the amusement tax generating fireworks law to try to get that repealed because of the numerous complaints and things that are going on. But that was pretty bad for us. I can say we didn't actually, nobody called during the evening to complain about fireworks at all. I did get a couple different calls for loud parties around our coverage area, but they were all winding down and they were very agreeable to turning it off when I got there. But the fireworks were extremely bad. Never saw it that bad before in my entire life.
Agreed, Steve. It was, I would almost say frightening, even more than unsettling. It was a little bit frightening. We were fortunate when you look at a Reading that had several fires as a result of fireworks on roofs and that sort of thing. But yeah, I hope Senator Schwank is successful in her repeal.
And that's pretty much all I have for the public report, unless anybody has any questions.
Okay, if nobody has any questions for the chief, then what we're going to do is I think we need to move into executive session about an issue regarding the police department. So Chris, can you arrange for that?
Yeah, so yes, I can. So Denton, Craig, Anita, and Doreen are going to be moved to a waiting room. When we're done, I'll readmit you back to the waiting room.
Excuse me, Chris, it's Doreen.
Yes.
Will you be, to say, pausing the recording of the meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me.
Nope.
And that's a good point. Nobody can be recording executive session. So we need to make everyone aware.
Courtney, that's confirmed, yes, that we cannot tape the or make any recording of the executive session. Is that correct?
It's highly recommended that we do not have any recordings of the executive session. What happens in executive session stays in executive session, except for any motions that occur right after executive session.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm putting Doreen. Anything else, Doreen, before I kick you out?
Nope, we're good. Thank you.
All right. Doreen's in, and the recording has stopped.
Okay, moving on to the rest of our agenda. Chris, are we opening up the guest lines, any open phone lines for any additional guests?
There's no one else joined. Denton is still with us as our sole guest.
Okay.
Denton has staying power. Good for you, Denton.
Like you lucky.
Always, yes.
So then we're going to move on. Courtney, can you take over the agenda items that are from your office, please?
Excuse me, folks. It's Chief Stinsky. If nobody has anything for me, I'm going to step into the Topton meeting.
Absolutely, Chief. I think everything, we've taken care of anything. Anybody have any further questions for the chief on anything else?
Nope. Thank you, Chief.
Nice to meet you, Chief.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep. Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm going to just apologize in advance. We're having some Wi-Fi issues here at the office, so please let me know if you need me to repeat myself. To start, we are going to begin with a resolution for the regarding the tax flat period. At the beginning of the COVID pandemic, when we first started having the stay-at-home orders, Act 15 was enacted by the General Assembly in Pennsylvania, which authorized municipalities to extend property tax periods. If you recall, there's 3 periods for collection: the discount period, the flat period, and the penalty period. And the majority of the property taxes are collected during the discount period, which goes through April. The resolution proposed extends the flat period, where there's no penalty, from the end of June through the end of September. which has been recommended by the Berks County Commissioners for two reasons. One, loss of income and employment will likely, we want to try to limit the amount of penalization for property owners, but also because that is what Berks County is doing, and that's what the majority of the other municipalities are doing, and the systems are intertwined, and so we need to try to make it as easy for the tax collection office as possible in their software. So the resolution, I believe, has already been provided. Chris, do you have that you're able to bring up, or have you sent it out to everybody?
The which one? The Articles of Amendment?
No, the tax flat period extension.
That was actually sent out in the March meeting that we cut short. So that was already sent out to everybody.
That was sent out to you guys quite a while ago. So we are simply voting to approve that resolution, and that will simply extend that flat period where there would be no penalties until the end of September. Every other municipality in Berks County has done so. So I strongly recommend this, and then it will make your tax collector's job much easier. So go ahead and, if you'd like to make some action on that, go for it.
So we did receive the documentation back in April, if anybody recalls, and what we received was we got information from the commissioners who recommended this action, Commissioners Rivera, Barnhart, and Lineback.
Mm-hmm.
So can I have a motion on that?
It's Ralph. I'll make the motion.
Can I have a second, please?
John will second.
So I have a motion by Mr. Touch and a second by Mr. Rothenberger. Do we have any further discussion on this matter? Okay. If we've got no further discussion, then we'll go through the vote. I vote yes. Mr. Merkel?
Yes.
Mr. Meals?
Yes.
Mr. Touch?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Yes.
And Tammy Gore?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That motion passes.
These are my easy items of the night. The second item on the agenda is a resolution to amend the articles of amendment to renew the authority term. So Pennsylvania law provides that municipal authorities have a limited term, and the term for the authority is to expire at the end of this year. So the articles of amendment would renew the term for 50 years for the water authority. We recommend this so that we don't have to think about it again for 50 years.
I don't think I'll be thinking about it again in 50
And
years.
Alicia sent this out to everybody earlier this month.
John, aren't you going to say, wasn't Pete around when we did this the first time?
No, you'll still be on council in 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
Maybe
I
I'll
have no
still
comment.
maybe I'll be replacing Andy by then.
Yeah.
Pete, you'll still be stuck with me.
Well, it wouldn't be too bad.
Oh, that's very sweet, Pete. Very nice. That was sweet.
It was.
All right.
So when was that, Chris, just when was that sent out to the team?
Alicia sent it out to the council earlier this month.
Mm-hmm.
I can find a date. Hang on.
I found the tapping fees. I just wanted to get that one.
June 10th.
Okay.
No, so it was actually last month.
Okay, then. Do I have a motion then for the Articles of Amendment to renew the authority term?
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Merkel. Do I have a second?
John will make that.
John Rothenberger makes that second. Do I have any further discussion on this, please? Okay, then we'll go to the vote. I vote yes. Suzanne Touch. Mr. Merkel?
Yes.
Mr. Meals?
Yes.
Mr. Touch?
Yeah.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Yes.
And Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Okay, that carries as well. Okay, Courtney, you're up for the next one as well.
All right. Well, number 3 was the waiver that for Anita, which we already took care of.
Correct. And let me do an intro for the number 4 there.
Okay, great.
So as everybody knows, we had a devastating fire up on Locust Street back in March, April timeframe. The houses are just starting to be demolished now. Matter of fact, the demo permits came in just last week, and there's actually progress. The bottom line is, we're lucky, the borough is lucky, that there's a single contractor that has purchased all 4 buildings and is going to demolish them and start over again. When I was talking to that contractor, and I say we're lucky for now, we'll see how well it goes, but we're not dealing with 4 separate entities is my point. When I was talking to that contractor, he goes, Fleetwood might want to consider doing the Act 93 ordinance like many other municipalities have done. And he went on to briefly explain what it is. And actually, this is where I'll turn over to Courtney, where maybe you can educate us all on why this is a good thing to be pursuing.
Sure. So Act 93, sometimes also referred to as Act 95, is the Fire Insurance Proceeds Escrow Act, which basically provides that if someone has fire insurance, a portion of those proceeds can be held in escrow and be remitted to the municipality for any costs incurred by the municipality as a result of the fire. And that's pretty much the summary of it. There's no need to go into a lot more detail. Most municipalities have an ordinance that explicitly explains that and requires certain requirements to it. And we provided a copy of a memorandum that we previously prepared for another borough about a year ago, or another municipality, maybe 2 years ago, to Chris, along with an example ordinance earlier last week, to provide some information about it. It's a fairly simple piece of legislation, but it basically says the municipality gets to place the proceeds in a separate fund to use as security if there's any municipal expenses, if that are anticipated that would require to be removed or repair or secure the building or structure. And it really just, they can be used for a lot of things when there's a fire. And especially when there's commercial structures, or in a town like Fleetwood where the structures may be closer together, that can get more complicated. So an engineer can give you a little bit more of an idea of how the proceeds might be helpful. But that's what Act 93/95 provides.
Thank you. So I was thinking, Suzanne, if council is in agreement, we can ask Andy's office to start preparing a ordinance that Fleetwood would be part of this. And this, I think, Courtney, did you mention it was like in the 90s that it was implemented? And when I talked to Andy, he was kind of surprised that Fleetwood didn't do something back then. So this must have escaped at the time somehow along the line.
Yes.
So obviously, it's not an automatic. Like Act 93 does not provide this for all boroughs unless they adopt it in some sort of resolution.
Correct, because the borough has to elect to take on certain obligations but keep it in a separate fund. And so we'll go through and explain the ordinance once we prepare it and the obligations. But the original act and then the act that amended it was enacted in 1992 and then in 1995. So it's about as old as I am.
Oh, stop it.
That was just to piss off Pete. That was just to piss off Pete. I haven't seen you guys in forever. I had to.
So is this something that would have been helpful for, and I'm thinking back to the tannery fire where things had to be done to the building to make them safe just until the contractors could come in and fix it?
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the facts of that.
You might have been like 5 years old when that happened.
So actually, yeah. So John, for the intent from what I have understood, this is mainly if someone takes the cash and runs away. The insurance company pays off and they run away, and you're just left with this shell of a building.
Yeah.
There's money now in escrow that at least you can demolish it, get it back to a decent lot, and it's the insurance money that is being put in escrow for that.
It's basically to allow the borough to protect itself from having abandoned buildings that they can't revitalize after a fire. Is really the aim of it, and having, if there's going to be fire insurance proceeds, that they can be used by the borough for purposes of at least making sure that the property can be used for those, or at least getting it to a place where it could maybe be demolished, or in a place where it could be maybe marketed for some sale.
Understand better now. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, the how exactly it might be useful, though the conversation might be better with an engineer, but yes.
And I did talk to Harry very, very briefly. I didn't get a better discussion yet with him, but when I did discuss it, he was also surprised that we didn't have something like this.
Yes.
So, and Suzanne, I don't even think we need a motion at this point. This is just if no one objects to have Andy starting the process, we can move on with it.
Informally, does anybody have any concerns about this? I would think that Andy could create a resolution, as well as we could also dovetail with our engineer and have the engineer give their, ideas about the usefulness of it. And then Andy could also fill in any blanks we had at the time. Do we have any concerns about Andy moving forward with that?
And we have plenty, almost every municipality we work with has ordinances, and we have plenty that we can start with as forms of that. So we're in a place where it's not like we're starting from scratch like we are with some other issues, like when everybody freaked out about 5G recently in the past year or so. So it's a difficult thing to draft or prepare. So.
Okay, sounds like we don't have any concerns about Andy going forward with it. So if you could please request that. And then Chris, if you could double back with engineering just to get their thoughts on it, say for some of the instances that we've had recently. We had the fire at the tannery lot. We had the fire on Main Street, right? Wasn't that a fire at the
Village Butcher?
Not the bakery, but the
Butcher.
The Butcher, as well as the one on Locust Street?
Correct.
And Washington Street.
The Village Butcher would be the closest thing to if there would have been a problem here. If they could have just walked away from a burned out shell and take the insurance money and run. Now, I guess there's other legal ramifications, but this allows now the council to take some money and secure it. So,
all right, West Washington was similar.
I'm surprised that it never came up with these other fires that we didn't know anything about it. So
well, because everything has been handled relatively well, including this. If this wouldn't have been for the contractor mentioning it, this would have went by the wayside, because hopefully it continues being good. It's not until something happens bad, and since particularly since we didn't jump on the bandwagon back in the 90s, it kind of is now, until the ugly monster raises its head, we wouldn't know it.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to B, Chris, are you talking about re-engaging about these ordinances and resolutions?
Yeah, as I've been going through some of the notes over the last couple of months, we've had a lot, and I was talking to Andy about it as well. Actually, it's months and years. There's a bunch of ordinances that have kind of stalled in either committee or just in energy level. The newest one is the tannery lot rules that Pete threw out not too long ago. The parking ordinance needs to be updated, and that would be folded in with the tannery lot. There's a shade tree ordinance that was rewritten 2-ish years ago, maybe. and the sidewalk ordinance that has kind of stalled. And then there's also a usage of borough facilities that we don't really have. We have rules, but we don't have any documentation from a resolution standpoint. So if there's no objections, I can start engaging with Andy's office. And I feel bad, Courtney, because you're here and we keep on talking about Andy. So
Okay.
we'll call you part of Andy's office. But we start to re-engage with them and get these back to committees to, as I put in here, to re-engage.
Mm-hmm.
There's no objections. We'll
I don't
keep that
have any,
rolling.
I don't think we should have any concerns about that. And of course, when we rediscuss these stalled resolutions and ordinances, they can be reviewed in committee, and any particular issues can be identified, and then if there are any, and if not, then we can move forward with them and then review and vote on them from there.
Exactly. Yep. So it's just if anybody has another one that they know of, these are the ones that I happen to know of, let me know. So this is an awareness, and we'll continue our trek on trying to keep these updated, and also keep in mind that there's a recodification process. So if we can combine some of these with recodification, even better.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, then we're moving on to the mayor's report. Tammy?
Yeah. Get my act together here. If that could take too long. All right, so we have been talking about the fact that we're doing business in a different way, and of course everybody has recording devices on them about 24/7. And so we needed to come up and update our resolution on public meeting policies to include recording devices. So I believe Chris sent that out to everybody, and I don't know the best way to go over this. Perhaps, of course, we have learned since the world of Zoom has dominated our lives, that any person attending a council meeting or a Zoom meeting has the right to record that meeting. However, it's not a totally free right. So there are some guidelines of how that is done. And one of them we're already doing, and we ask that people who are recording also announce the fact that they are recording and what their affiliation is, or what they intend to use the recording for, if they're using it for some sort of affiliation. And we can also designate areas within the facility, within the meeting room, if we're in person, where that can take place, so that it is not disruptive to the rest of the meeting. For instance, somebody can't come in and set their camera up on the desk in front of the council president unless that council president says with advance notice that is acceptable to him or her. So we do have some rights to determine where this should take place. So that's what this document outlines. And then we have situations where, for instance, the executive session, that cannot be recorded under any circumstances. And we're going to have to be very careful about some things, like when we get pre-bid estimates. That is not something that we would want recorded and then presented to the public, because it's not fair to the other people who would be bidding on that. So a lot of times we have relationships with companies, and out of kindness for those relationships, they'll tell us approximately what a job is going to cost, and so that we can plan our budget. Well, then when we finally do go out for bid, that would be unfair information to the other bidders for that job. So we have to be very careful about some of the things that we make public. So we address this all in this draft that we created as a committee with Mark Watkins at the helm. He did a great job, by the way. And so I don't know if anybody has any questions about, what it is and what we're including in this document. By all means, ask.
Tammy, Andy and I are in the process of reviewing it, and we'll be providing our comments to Chris. So far, it looks consistent with what we've seen with other municipalities. We just want to make sure that it's consistent with also the language of the Borough Code and the sunshine laws, and also practically makes sense. Sometimes having a third party read it, sometimes we think of little things that just help. One thing I did want to clarify from something you said was when you mentioned the estimates.
Pre-bid.
Pre-bid estimates. I just wanted to remind everybody, if you have anything in your email or anything like that, that is always subject to right to know requests. So just be conscious of that. While whatever is being recorded, you might want to be conscious of what you say in meetings, but at the same time, anything in your email correspondence or that is provided throughout committees or anything like that is still subject to right to know requests.
That is correct. So we have to be aware of that. I'm not saying there's anything that we're trying to hide or not. We just have to be aware, and we have to be careful of that. And we do say at the end of this document that the Borough Council does not support and will not be held liable for unofficial recordings performed by anyone, public or elected officials or staff. We will only be responsible for that which we record, which Chris is recording. So we will keep these recordings as necessary for our purposes. They're mostly to make sure that the minutes are accurate, but we will keep some of these for a period not to exceed 1 year, or until sufficiently documented and approved. Do you have any questions at this point? Like I said, like Courtney said, they're still reviewing it, so we'll have plenty of time to look at this, but that's the start.
I do have a couple questions about the resolution. Colin.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like virtual meetings are included in this document, unless I'm missing it.
I believe, Colin, that may be partially because the example that we provided, Colin, to Chris, the example of a resolution, an ordinance that that other municipalities, the examples were from a time period prior to Zoom meetings being authorized. So that is probably why that is the case. If the committee would like to incorporate I did notice that in my review as well. So that is probably why that is the case.
It seems to me like, yeah, I agree. This is a little dated. Back when recorders could not be held in the palm of your hand. So I think the requirement that a recording device must be placed in the back of the meeting room is a little outdated, because certainly if somebody's sitting in the audience and they're not disrupting anybody and they're not obstructing anybody's view, certainly them holding an iPhone in their hand and recording in their seat and not obstructing anybody, I think that would be reasonable. And I think a rule that says that is not permitted would be unreasonable based on current technology.
Okay. Well, like I said, they're going to be reviewing that and getting an actual draft. This was our committee meeting.
Right. That was just my comment. That's all the comments. The other question is, what's the penalty for violation of this? It doesn't seem. It seems like the only remedy is just adjournment of the meeting. I'm not sure if a penalty would be appropriate or how it's going to be enforced.
That's a good question, Colin. I don't know the answer to it. So.
That's all the comments I have.
Colin, it's my understanding that all municipalities are authorized to adopt guidelines for their meetings. If an attendee chooses to not abide by those guidelines after having a warning, they can be removed from the meeting. That is my understanding. We will confirm that, and we will, like I said, we'll confirm that and discuss that with the committee during our review. But we will confirm that, but that is our understanding from our prior conversation. I think that's only, we've discussed this also with our other municipal lawyers in our firm. We've only had one instance that we talked about where that has occurred. And that was more violent misconduct during a meeting. So it's rare where someone is not willing to abide by the guidelines.
So if there's no other questions or comments on that, we'll like I said, we'll have plenty of time to review that once they are done with their review. I'm not going to say Andy's office. I'm going to say when Courtney's office is done with.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And then proclamations. I've only done 2. One was for the graduating class of 2020. And I did a proclamation, and then I put all their names. I don't know, you can probably can't see that. No, you can't see it. But anyway, I put all their names on the back, and each graduating student from Fleetwood got that along with their diploma. So I'm sure this meant more to them than their diploma, so really. But anyway, so
actually, Tammy, I did get a few that were quite impressed with that. So I think that was well done.
Oh, well, good. Thank you. And then I also did a proclamation for the fire department for their outstanding work. Well, not just fire department, but fire police and as well as the rest of the emergency personnel for the fine job they did at Locust Street at that fire. From the get-go, from calling 3 alarms quickly and getting 10 fire companies there to containing that fire to 4 structures was nothing short of incredible. So I recognize the fire department, particularly since you haven't been able to have a banquet this year so far. I wanted to make sure that we recognize the fire department for that outstanding work. So that's it. Those were the 2 parts.
Okay. Moving on, Chris, for your manager's report.
Yeah, quickly, I sent out another finance update in the essence of time being 8:15. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. But in a nutshell, we are not bad at all on revenue. In fact, it's kind of surprising where we're at. The real estate tax and the EIT income is still very, very good. The real estate tax, we're like 97% where we should be anyway, because as Courtney pointed out, most people pay before they get the penalty. So that's all, that was already in by April 1st. And then the EIT is where all the municipalities are very, very concerned, because EIT is based upon workers. And if you're on unemployment, you're not paying your EIT, earned income tax, to your local municipalities. So far, knock on wood, Fleetwood is doing well. I'll feel a little bit better when we get through July and August. As I said before, I think September would be the time where we can take a look at what we want to do for the end of the year for spending. But in a nutshell, we're pretty good. Does anybody have any questions on what I had out there?
None here.
Okay, so then the Main Street Fair, very, very quick. Main Street merchants were looking at the October 3rd, I'd look at the calendar for a second, as their next street fair, their next open house event. Typically they run this with their own planning, very little borough involvement. Craig and the guys usually get involved with maybe some barricades at the alleyway. But this time they are asking if we could close Main Street. I did talk to Steve. Steve thinks it is plausible, but he would need council approval to do that. And it's a 2-month lead time with PennDOT to work out the details. That's why we're bringing it up now. And when I say close Main Street,
During the-
only.
I know that
between-
during the last street fair, open house, whatever you want to call it, that was the complaint that the public had, was having to cross back and forth across Main Street. To get to a little bit dangerous. However, now all that traffic has to go on our small borough streets. I mean, it has to be detoured, you know, through Fleetwood. You know, is that worse?
So Steve has 3 different options. One, we could close it completely. And when I say Main Street, it's strictly between Franklin and Richmond.
Right.
So basically a truck coming up from DECA would have to make a left or a right, go up around the Locust Street, the Tannery lot, and then go up 662 that way. Another option would be to close it to one way at a time. So the fire police would be at each intersection and allow trucks to go through, but only through the middle of the block, allowing people not to be as close to the curbs. Those that were in attendance last time remember that anybody that was on the curb and maybe looking at a table, if they take one step back, they're in the street, and that could be pretty disastrous. So at least a single lane would be a methodology of doing it. And the third way would be a little bit more of a, well, let's just go with those 2 concepts at this point. Either close completely between the 2, and Steve does have a ability to do it, including when we have done it in the past on Memorial Day parades and firemen's parades, things like that. So it is plausible and doable if council doesn't object.
What's the time involved?
Period of time. You know, it's going to be, I don't know what, 11 to 3 or just, so it's longer than what a parade would be.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So, but you know, it can be done. Anything can be done.
Didn't we have some complaint? I don't remember. Was it because that it's not easy to do with DOT to close that? Because I thought there was a reason that we stopped having, well, besides the construction on Main Street, but I thought there was a concern about that at one point, way back
You
when.
have to write to PennDOT months in advance and request.
And at the time, the parades, like the homecoming parade, can avoid Main Street, so it doesn't have to go on Main Street. And so that was Steve's request. If we can keep it off of Main Street, let's do it, because it becomes, as Tammy said, a very involved PennDOT permit process. But here, I mean, it's kind of tough to move the Main Street merchants to a different street.
Somebody want to make that vote?
What's that?
A motion.
Don't we want to have a vote on this?
You need a motion.
Well, yeah, we'd have to have a motion. Someone would have to make a motion to request that we have DOT permission to close Main Street for a period of time for the Main Street October Fair.
I can make that motion. I don't think PennDOT's going to approve it, but I'll make that motion. In fact, I was up in Kutztown going for some runs, and they shut down their Main Street and put seating out in the street. I think that was very successful, but they're not a state road, and they don't have to get PennDOT's permission. But if PennDOT would approve it, I would be for it. But I don't think they're going to. But I can make that motion.
Well, doesn't Boyertown shut down? That's a state road, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've shut ours down in the past. I mean, it can be done. It just takes some planning.
I think it takes certainly advanced notice, and you have to be prepared for their questions, you know, for alternate routes and everything. But
Right.
if we've got the motion, then can I have a second from someone, please?
I'll second it. This is Jim.
Thank you, Jim. So I have a motion and I have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, we'll go through the roll. I vote yes. Mr. Merkel?
Yes.
Mr. Meals?
Yes.
Mr. Touch?
Yeah.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Yes.
Tammy Gore?
Yes.
Okay. Well then, Chris, can you go forward with can you advise the Main Street Committee that we are in favor of this? And I don't know who makes that application, if it's us or the police or whoever, but can you dovetail with them and tell us what else we maybe need to do for this?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet. The last thing on that list is the Locust Street fire, another discussion point, the zoning. So as we look at the zoning ordinance, I believe there's a sign issues that we wanted to, the council wanted to look at again. The other thing to look at in the zoning would be, if we're going to open it up, the requirements that are in there for when there's a devastating fire. Currently, of course, has to be built back to code. There's no argument there, but it also has to be built back with the current zoning setbacks, which right now the homes up there would not pass, and they're going to have to go through a variance in order to do that, assuming that they're going to rebuild them as is. When I was talking to Harry, he did indicate too that our zoning ordinance might want to reconsider that. With the older structures we have in the borough, you can imagine, God forbid, if there's a block fire on Washington Street and then they have to do the setbacks, you would only be able to put maybe 5 homes in instead of the 20 that are there. A lot of them say that as long as it doesn't encroach further, so it's the same or better, they would be okay with that type of terminology. So it's just a point. I think it's worthwhile to discuss, get some different guidelines, unless council thinks that we're very good where we're at now.
No, I think that's a great idea. Did you say sign ordinance?
Yeah, the zoning is part of the signs, which there were some issues that have come up in the past that we may want to revisit as a borough, excuse me, as a borough, to fine tune some of the sign like on Main Street.
Yes.
So as we prepare for that, if there's any other zoning issues, because changing the zoning ordinance is a big deal, as we remember in the past. So it'd be better to dovetail as many as we can into one change than try to do it several times. Okay, and then related to the Main Street that I think Colin just mentioned, that Kutztown closes their Main Street for businesses. If you remember, there was some discussion about Grand Central Tap Room asking if we could close Richmond Street next to their place, as well as or the alley behind them. I had it on the agenda, called Diane, who's the part owner, and she requested we remove it from the agenda. They do not want to pursue that. Just update for everybody there. That's all I got.
Okay, moving on. Do we have Craig to talk about paving and the ratifying of the bids for liquid fuels?
Craig?
Unmute.
Craig, are you on?
Yep.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, I have my report prepared. Unfortunately, I forgot to send it out. I was off on Friday, and I was busy today and forgot to send it out. But in a nutshell, we're done the paving. I just finished up meter reading, and Chris and I were talking. We're doing our paving local forces, on our own with Richmond Township, and that's truly acceptable for liquid fuels. I do go out every year and I get quotes, and we use the state price on asphalt. It was brought to Chris's attention during the audit that we should run those things by council, so you guys know that we are doing the right thing. So I gave Chris the copies of the quotes for this year, and also the co-star's pricing, so for you guys to review and ratify that you saw go through the meeting. It was not, they're all quotes because they're under the limit, but we do use the lowest quote for each piece of equipment, and we use the co-star's pricing for the asphalt. So, Chris, I don't know if you need action from council on that or what we're looking for exactly.
The audit was, they just wanted to see in the minutes that council has seen the bids and are aware. So I think this is an awareness. Doreen can document that. There's a summary page there, actually, that I put on with Craig's data. If we put those in the minutes, that should suffice.
And like Ryan said, the tannery lot is, just about finished. There's a few things they're finishing up. And like I said earlier, they did attempt to kind of put some more soil there to get the grass a little bit better in seed. It's a big clumpy mess to the point that I can't mow it. So I did call them today and said, you need to come in there and do a little better there. So, we're going to work with them here to the end. We are holding a retainage. So, make sure that work gets done. But the tannery lot's pretty much finished except for those few little items. And again, to reflect on paving, everything went very well. We did good financially. Richmond Township, again, was a big help. And I think our streets look fabulous. We're getting better and better at it. So,
yeah, they look great.
No, and I want to throw in
anything else for me.
I want to throw in my kudos to Craig too. That was 2 weeks of some pretty intense work that all the guys pitched in. We actually had some residents that wrote to us saying, hey, these guys are working very well, some of the part-timers as well. And I think it's kudos to Craig for handling that whole project very well, both pricing as well as his personnel.
Thank you. And if anyone has any other questions for me, you're welcome to ask them, or you can reach out to me via email, whatever. But I don't have, it's business as usual. We're mowing grass and fixing roads and making the water flow and the sewage flow, and we're in good shape.
So Craig, on the agenda, you had said about the road cut ordinance. I had that on there too.
Oh, that's my request, Chris. You said if anyone had any other outstanding issues. Through the Richmond Street, the church apartment development there where he's making the 10 apartments, it came to light that he needed to cut the alley, Moss Alley, which we just paid to put in a new electric service. And I went to look up the street ordinance, the street opening or the road cut ordinance, and turns out that we really do not have one. So I couldn't really charge him. So I mentioned to Chris that's something we really should have. What that does for us is, we'll hold an escrow of money. They'll show us what they're going to cut, the dimensions of it. We can figure out the square footage, and we charge a fee per square footage, which we hold as a escrow. And once the work is done, we will return that escrow minus the inspection fees and any fees that we associate with it. But what that does is if somebody opens the street to put a water line across or electric line across, and then they decide, I'm not fixing, I'm going to walk away, now we have money in our fund that we can use to replace that the correct way, and it doesn't come out of the whole scope of the general taxpayer money like it would right now. So I think that's pretty important.
We've talked about this before, and yes, we need a street cut ordinance for sure.
So while we're looking at these ordinances, maybe, Chris, you can get a committee together to review that, and I'll gladly be a part of that as well.
And Courtney, do you have other ordinances like this from other municipalities? I'm sure you do.
I'm sure we do. We can look through our ordinance books, and I'm sure we can find examples and send them over to Chris.
I believe Ryan had sent us one that I thought I sent to your office with Andy. I might want to double check that. And if not, I'll resend it. That Craig had looked at and thought that was reasonable anyway. It's a good starting point.
Correct.
Yeah, we'll check that, and then I'll see what else we have. Sometimes it's good to look at more than one, because depending on who drafted them, you'll find different things valuable.
Oh, without doubt. No, it's a great idea.
But while we're reviewing ordinances, I think that's a good one to put in with the rest of them to take a look at.
Thanks, Craig.
Okay. Are we talking, I apologize, are we talking about the tap-in fees next?
Yes.
Okay.
I can start it out. I sent an outline out this morning to everybody, and I sent it I made the outline. I sent it to the Sewer and Water Committee last week. So I guess we all have to look at it. And we all know what sewer and water tap-in fees are, I hope. That's why I kind of explained what they are. you know, our water system is worth $24 million. We could legally charge $5,370 per EDU. Our sewer system's worth $30 million. We could legally charge $10,025 per EDU. We currently charge $1,800, and the whole ordinance is screwed up. It's not even per EDU, so you can get a 10-inch water service for $1,800, which is ridiculous. And we charge $3,000 per EDU for sewer. So we're suggesting $4,000 per EDU for water and $5,000 per EDU for sewer. You have a comparison to other boroughs there. We tried to hit it in the middle. How's everybody feel on that?
Sounds great, Pete.
Pete, this is Craig. I have a quick question for you, and I saw the email come through, and I didn't think of it until now because you just mentioned the 10-inch line. Are we going to have different fees? The EDU that you're proposing, the 4,000 on the water side, would be for a typical 3/4-inch hookup. Would there be other fees for a 2-inch hookup, a 4-inch hookup, a 6-inch hookup, those type of things? Will there be other fees for the bigger hookups?
In my third paragraph there, I say, commercial tap-in fees are calculated by our engineers based on project usage. It gets too complicated. And, you know, we have like one commercial hookup every 15 years. So we'll just take those on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, that's fine. I've seen them written up both ways. I've seen them, you know, have a structured fee per size of the pipe. If you don't want to get into it that far, that's understandable. That was my only question.
I think it should just be based on EDUs. For example, the apartments on Richmond Street, there's 10 EDUs. So it's 10 times whatever your fee is per EDU.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
stupid question here. Are tap-in fees only for new construction or a change in construction, or what is the fee when you change ownership of a property?
None. It's only when you are doing it. I apologize. I attend a lot of authority meetings for other authorities. Lot of sewer meetings. It's only when there is a joining of the system.
Okay.
Is that correct? Your understanding?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, new construction or change of use. Like if you're taking a building that was one dwelling and making 3 apartments out of it, that's a change of use that requires new connections. If you're building a new home, that's a new connection. So you're correct.
Or if you're changing it from
to an apartment building.
or you're taking like we've seen someone turn a mansion into a commercial use. I mean, we've seen some really interesting changes in property use over the years. And so with that, you end up you're going to have more use because you're going to have more people using facilities. And so with that, they're gonna need more EDUs, and therefore the tap-in is more.
And that would fall into the change of use category as well.
Yeah, that's where it's the big changes. Yes.
So Pete, we don't have many opportunities for new construction. We probably don't have a whole lot of opportunities for, significant change of use. And we're still, that's still a really good deal for these tap-in fees, if I'm reading it correctly.
Well, if you look at water, there's only two municipalities on the comparison that would be, there's only one that's higher than us at 4,000.
Okay.
And then 5,000 for sewer. There's two that are 5,000 and one that's 2 that are higher.
Okay.
Like I say, this is shot in the middle. Now, if you want to charge 10,000 per EDU, we legally could do that.
I just was asking the question just so I could understand.
Yeah, I mean, this, once we decide, then it has to go to the authority for their approval.
Actually, just Pete, a point of order there. The authority needs to actually assign these prices. This would be council's recommendation to the authority.
Yeah.
I had a quick question. This is Colin. Why is Richmond Township separate? I thought, don't they, part of Richmond Township uses our sewer and water?
Well, where is that? Where do you see that?
Yeah,
Second to the last.
Richmond is like 4,200.
Is that under the sewer, Colin?
Yeah, it's under the sewer tap in. I can give a brief explanation. The Fleetwood Authority sells bulk to the Richmond Township. Richmond Township charges that to the residents to tap into their bulk usage.
Yeah, they own their own system, so they're charging their own tap-in fees. We just treat their sewage, Colin. They own the system, so they have to allow tap-ins and charge their fee.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's my spiel. If we want to go with these fees, like I say, we're going to present it to the authority on July 21st.
Do we have to do anything at this meeting in order for you to go forward to the authority, Courtney?
I would recommend that if we are making a recommendation, that everybody agree upon the recommendation, that if there's anybody who has opinions that it should be higher or lower, that you guys just have that discussion and then maybe have a motion that you recommend this amount, so that Pete has a clear guidance when he goes to the meeting. Because it is an official recommendation on behalf of the borough. You don't have to, but it is your recommendation to another authority.
So do I have a motion from anybody to accept the tap-in fees as presented by Mr. Merkel?
John will make a motion.
John makes that motion. Do I have a second, please?
It's Ralph. I'll second the motion.
Okay, so I've got a motion by Mr. Rothenberger and a second by Mr. Touch. Do we have any further discussion on this matter? Okay.
The only comment that I would have is, I'm going to vote in favor of it, but the only comment that I would have is that there is a potential to discourage improvement if we're not in line, if we go too excessive and not in line with other municipalities, and I don't think that's where we're going, but that's just one potential issue.
Oh,
Surely. And Pete, if I remember correctly, the discussion was, if my understanding of this is correctly, that we are well in line with the tap-in fees, generally speaking. Is that not right?
Yeah, if you look at the second page that I sent everybody, you can see that we're in line. We're definitely in line. We wanted to shoot. We didn't want to be the highest. Right now, I think we're the lowest. So I think it's a fair number to ask people to pay. And you can see the value of these systems. It's enormous. And what you're doing is you're paying to use this system. So we picked those numbers to try to be fair.
Okay, so we had a motion by Mr. Rothenberger and a second by Mr. Touch. Do I have any further discussion then? So then we'll go to the vote, please. I vote yes. Mr. Merkel?
Yes.
Mr. Meals?
Yes.
Mr. Touch?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Yes.
Tammy Gore?
Yes.
Okay. right, then that motion carries as well. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, it's approve the bills for the current month as well as to ratify the bills, the payments made on June 22nd. John, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills for the, for this month.
And do we also include with that the ratification of the June 22nd?
No, we're going to do those separate.
Okay. So I've got a motion by John to pay the bills for the current month. John Rothenberger, do I have a second, please?
This is Jim. I'll second it.
Thank you, Jim. So I've got a motion by Mr. Rothenberger and a second by Mr. Meals. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oh, we can't do that. I'm going to run through the list. Suzanne Touch says yes. Mr. Merkel?
Yes.
Mr. Meals?
Yes.
Mr. Touch?
Yeah.
Mr. Boyer?
I abstain.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Yes.
And Ms. Gore, Mayor Gore?
She's not
You're on mute.
Okay. And then moving on to the ratification of the bills for June 22nd.
Yep, I'd like to make a motion to ratify the bills paid on June the 22nd.
Okay. I have a motion to pay the bills for June 22nd. Do I have any further, do I have a second, please?
This is Jim. I'll second it.
Do I have any further discussion? So we'll go through the list. I vote yes. Mr. Merkel?
Yes.
Mr. Meals?
Yes.
Mr. Touch?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
I abstain.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Yes.
Mayor Gore?
Yes.
Okay, now we move on to approving those motions carried, by the way. Approve the June 2020 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? They were forwarded to everybody via email.
I'll make the motion. It's Ralph.
Do I have a second, please?
Second, it's Pete.
Okay, do I have any further discussion? Okay, we'll run through the list. Suzanne Touch votes yes. Mr. Merkel?
Yes.
Mr. Meals?
Yes.
Mr. Touch?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Yes.
Mayor Gore? Yes. That's everything. Okay, do we have any further issues that need to be brought forward at this time? I can go through the list. Pete, do you have anything else?
No, I'm fine.
Mr. Meals?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Touch?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Mr. Boyer?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Surely. Mr. Rothenberger?
Nothing from me.
How about you, Tammy? Anything extra?
Nope.
Anything from our illustrious legal team? Courtney?
No, nice to see you all.
Okay, Chris, you have anything to round out the meeting?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn then, please?
John will make that.
John makes that motion. Do I have a second, please?
Hello, this is Denton.
I'm sorry, Denton. You wanted to talk about something tonight? I apologize, dear.
Yes, I did. I wanted to talk about, you mentioned that we have a sewer meeting on the 21st. Something that would help us out, Chris and Craig, is if we can get a hard count on the Rusker Manor Township water and sewer connections. And the progress of the intermunicipal agreement with Rusker Manor Township.
Yep, we'll have something for that meeting.
Okay, that's all. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Problem, Denton. I apologize. I didn't realize you were still on. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. That would help us out quite a bit next week. That's
Chris,
all.
can you make sure you get that to Denton? Chris?
Well, I'm sorry.
Make sure that you get that to Denton?
Yeah, the authority's legal team is looking at the Ruska Manor intermunicipal agreement, and Craig and his guys and myself are looking at the sewer connections.
Okay. Yeah, if we can have a hard count on that, that's good.
We're going to have an outline for the authority for the 21st for the future relationship with the borough and the authority. We've had multiple meetings on that. We have it pretty well drafted. Andy gave me his comments over the weekend. So I thought we'd get it all together and get it to the authority. Once it's with the authority, then it'll come back to the borough.
Okay. Any further business we need to discuss tonight? Anybody? Okay, that being the case, we did have a motion pending on the floor from John to dismiss, to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a second? No one's jumping at that motion. That's crazy.
I'll second it. My God.
Okay, we got a second from Mr. Merkel. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, actually, let's go to the list. I say yes. Mr. Merkel, you say yes?
Yes.
Mr. Beals?
Yes.
Mr. Touch?
Yes.
Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rothenberger?
Yep.
And Mayor Gore?
Oh, Hardy, yes.
All right, then we are officially adjourned. Everybody have a nice evening. Have a safe and pleasant week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Right.